Bette Davis. Bette Davis was a force of nature, a woman whose talent was matched only by her fiery temper. Her on-set clashes were as legendary as her performances. During the filming of Jezebel in the late 1930s, Davis stormed off set multiple times, furious over what she perceived as the director's lack of understanding of her character. Her intensity wasn't limited to directors. She often clashed with co-stars as well. On the set of All About Eve in the early 1950s, Davis's disdain for Celeste Holm was palpable. She reportedly refused to speak to Holm off-camera, creating an atmosphere of icy tension. But her most infamous feud was with Joan Crawford during Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Davis allegedly kicked Crawford in the head during a scene, claiming it was an accident, though many suspected otherwise. These incidents weren't just about ego. They revealed Davis's unrelenting drive to dominate every scene she was in. Her meltdowns were a reflection of her refusal to compromise, a trait that made her both revered and feared in Hollywood. Davis didn't just act. She fought for her place in an industry that demanded submission, and she did so with a ferocity that left a trail of chaos in her wake. Judy Garland. Judy Garland's life was a tragic symphony of brilliance and turmoil, and her struggles often spilled onto the sets of her films. By the time she was filming The Wizard of Oz in the late 1930s, Garland was already under immense pressure from studio executives who controlled every aspect of her life. The grueling schedule and constant scrutiny led to frequent emotional breakdowns. She was reportedly slapped by a director to stop her from crying during a scene, a shocking glimpse into the harsh treatment she endured. Her struggles only deepened as she grew older. During the production of A Star is Born in the mid-1950s, Garland's erratic behavior caused significant delays. She would often arrive late or not at all, leaving the cast and crew in limbo. These weren't just diva antics. They were the result of years of mistreatment, exhaustion, and personal struggles. Garland's meltdowns were heartbreaking reminders of the immense pressure placed on her to maintain her status as a star. Behind the scenes, she was fighting battles that few could see, and the cracks in her facade often revealed the human cost of Hollywood's relentless demands. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was a genius, a pioneer of silent film whose perfectionism revolutionized cinema. But his brilliance came at a cost, and it was often those around him who paid the price. During the filming of City Lights in the early 1930s, Chaplin's obsession with getting every detail right led to an infamous incident with actress Virginia Sherrill. He reportedly made her redo a single scene over 300 times, pushing her to the brink of an emotional collapse. Chaplin's temper was equally legendary. On the set of The Great Dictator in the late 1930s, he clashed with his cinematographer over lighting, reportedly throwing a fit that halted production for hours. His behavior wasn't just about artistic control. It was about his need to maintain absolute authority over his work. Chaplin's meltdowns were a reflection of his relentless pursuit of perfection, a trait that made him a cinematic icon, but also a tyrant on set. His genius was undeniable, but it came with a price, and those who worked with him often found themselves caught in the crossfire of his unyielding vision. Vivien Leigh. Vivien Leigh was a woman of extraordinary talent, but her brilliance came with a fragility that often unraveled on set. By the time she was filming Gone with the Wind in the late 1930s, Leigh was already under immense pressure to deliver a career-defining performance as Scarlett O'Hara. The grueling production schedule and constant scrutiny from director Victor Fleming pushed her to the edge. Leigh reportedly had frequent emotional outbursts, including one incident where she stormed off set after a heated argument over her character's motivation. Her struggles only deepened during the filming of A Streetcar Named Desire in the early 1950s. Leigh's immersion into the role of Blanche Dubois, a character descending into madness, blurred the line between fiction and reality. Co-stars and crew members noted her erratic behavior, which included sudden mood swings and moments of complete withdrawal. These weren't just the actions of a difficult actress, they were symptoms of her deteriorating mental health, which she battled privately for years. Leigh's meltdowns were not mere theatric, they were the visible cracks of a woman trying to balance the weight of her genius with the relentless demands of Hollywood. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn was the epitome of swashbuckling charm on screen, but behind the scenes, his unpredictable behavior often turned film sets into chaos. During the filming of The Adventures of Robin Hood in the late 1930s, Flynn's penchant for heavy drinking caused frequent delays. He would arrive on set late, visibly hungover, and sometimes unable to perform. His clashes with director Michael Curtis were legendary, with one incident during the charge of the Light Brigade in the mid-1930s nearly escalating into a physical altercation. Flynn's temper flared when Curtis insisted on using real explosives during a battle scene, which Flynn believed endangered the lives of the cast and crew. On another occasion, during Captain Blood, Flynn reportedly threw his sword in frustration after a costume malfunction, halting production for hours. His on-set meltdowns weren't just about indulgence. They were a reflection of a man who felt trapped by the roles he was typecast into. Flynn's off-screen antics often overshadowed his talent, but his behavior on set revealed a deeper struggle with the pressures of maintaining his image as Hollywood's ultimate rogue. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando was a revolutionary force in acting, but his methodical approach and refusal to conform often made him a nightmare to work with. During the filming of A Streetcar Named Desire in the early 1950s, Brando's insistence on improvisation clashed with director Elia Kazan's structured vision. Brando would frequently ignore direction, forcing his co-stars to adapt to his unpredictable choices. On the set of The Wild One in the mid-1950s, Brando's refusal to rehearse scenes frustrated the cast and crew, leading to multiple delays. His behavior became even more erratic during Mutiny on the Bounty in the early 1960s, where he reportedly demanded script changes daily and refused to perform scenes he didn't agree with. The production spiraled out of control, with Brando's antics contributing to massive budget overruns. These weren't just the actions of a difficult actor. They were the hallmarks of a man who saw himself as an artist first and a movie star second. Brando's meltdowns were a direct challenge to the rigid structure of Hollywood, and while they often caused chaos, they also redefined what it meant to be an actor. John Barrymore. John Barrymore was a titan of stage and screen, but his brilliance was often overshadowed by his erratic behavior and personal struggles. By the time he was filming Grand Hotel in the early 1930s, Barrymore's reputation for showing up to set intoxicated was well known. His inability to remember lines led to frequent outbursts, including one incident where he reportedly threw a script at a director in frustration. During the production of 20th Century in the mid-1930s, Barrymore's temper flared when he felt his co-stars were stealing focus from his performance. He would interrupt scenes, berate the crew, and demand reshoots, creating an atmosphere of constant tension. His behavior during Romeo and Juliet in the mid-1930s was even more erratic, with Barrymore often refusing to follow direction and improvising lines that left his co-stars scrambling to keep up. These meltdowns weren't just the result of indulgence. They were the actions of a man grappling with the decline of his career and the weight of his family's legacy. Barrymore's on-set collapses were a tragic reminder of the toll that fame and expectation can take on even the most gifted performers. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift was a trailblazer in method acting, but his brilliance came with a vulnerability that often unraveled on set. By the time he was filming Raintree County in the late 1950s, Clift was recovering from a devastating car accident that left him physically and emotionally scarred. His insecurities about his altered appearance led to frequent emotional collapses during production. He would lock himself in his dressing room for hours, delaying filming and leaving the crew in limbo. On the set of From Here to Eternity in the early 1950s, Clift's obsessive need to perfect every scene caused tension with director Fred Zinnemann. He would demand endless rehearsals, frustrating his co-stars and pushing the production schedule to its limits. Clift's behavior wasn't about ego. It was a reflection of his internal struggles and his relentless pursuit of authenticity in his performances. His meltdowns were a stark reminder of the immense pressure he placed on himself to meet the expectations of an industry that often prioritized image over humanity. Clift's on-set difficulties were not just moments of chaos. They were the visible cracks of a man grappling with his own demons while trying to maintain his place in Hollywood. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo was the epitome of mystery and elegance, but her reclusive nature and perfectionism often made her a challenging presence on set. During the filming of Queen Christina in the early 1930s, Garbo reportedly halted production for days, demanding rewrites of scenes she felt didn't align with her vision of the character. Her insistence on working in complete silence on set created an almost oppressive atmosphere, with crew members walking on eggshells to avoid upsetting her. On the set of Camille in the mid-1930s, Garbo's frustration with the lighting led to a dramatic outburst, where she refused to continue filming until the cinematographer adjusted every detail to her satisfaction. These weren't just the actions of a diva, they were the manifestations of a woman fiercely protective of her image and legacy. Garbo's meltdowns were not about vanity, they were about control in an industry that often sought to exploit its stars. Her behavior on set revealed the immense pressure she felt to maintain her status as one of Hollywood's most iconic figures, even as she longed for the privacy and solitude that fame had stolen from her. Mae West. Mae West was a woman ahead of her time, unafraid to challenge societal norms, but her strong personality often led to clashes on set. During the filming of She Done Him Wrong in the early 1930s, West reportedly had a meltdown over her costumes, demanding they be redesigned to better reflect her vision of the character. Her insistence on rewriting her own dialogue caused frequent arguments with directors who felt undermined by her control over the script. On the set of Myra Breckinridge in the late 1960s, West's refusal to share scenes with co-star Raquel Welch created significant delays. She reportedly demanded that Welch's lines be cut or rewritten, leading to a tense standoff that nearly derailed the production. West's behavior wasn't about arrogance, it was about maintaining her brand in an industry that often sought to diminish women's power. Her meltdowns were a reflection of her determination to control her narrative, even if it meant alienating those around her. West's on-set clashes were not just moments of drama, they were acts of defiance in a system that rarely allowed women to call the shots. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow, the original blonde bombshell, was a star whose insecurities often bubbled to the surface during production. On the set of Red Dust in the early 1930s, Harlow reportedly had a breakdown over her wardrobe, refusing to wear a costume she felt was unflattering. Her clashes with director Victor Fleming during Bombshell in the mid-1930s were well documented, with Harlow storming off set after an argument about her performance. These incidents weren't just about vanity, they were the actions of a young woman navigating the immense pressures of stardom in an industry that scrutinized every aspect of her appearance. Harlow's personal life also weighed heavily on her, and the emotional toll often spilled over into her work. During the filming of Saratoga in the late 1930s, Harlow's health began to decline, leading to moments of visible distress on set. Her meltdowns were not just moments of chaos, they were the cries of a woman trying to balance the demands of fame with her own personal struggles. Harlow's on-set difficulties were a poignant reminder of the human cost of Hollywood's relentless pursuit of perfection. Clark Gable. Clark Gable, the King of Hollywood, was known for his charm and commanding presence, but his on-set behavior occasionally revealed a more volatile side. During the filming of Gone with the Wind in the late 1930s, Gable's frustration with the grueling production schedule and constant script changes boiled over. He reportedly stormed off set after a heated argument with director Victor Fleming, refusing to return until his demands were met. Gable's temper wasn't limited to directors, he also clashed with co-stars. On the set of The Misfits in the early 1960s, Gable grew increasingly irritated with Marilyn Monroe's frequent tardiness and erratic behavior, leading to tense confrontation that disrupted filming. His outbursts weren't just about ego, they were the actions of a man struggling to maintain his status as a leading man in an industry that was rapidly changing. Gable's meltdowns were a reflection of the immense pressure he felt to live up to his larger-than-life persona, even as the weight of his personal and professional struggles began to take their toll. Behind the scenes, the king was not immune to the cracks that fame and expectation could create. Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich was a woman of unparalleled sophistication, but her perfectionism often made her a difficult presence on set. During the filming of Destry Rides Again in the late 1930s, Dietrich reportedly halted production multiple times, demanding changes to her costumes and lighting to ensure she looked flawless on screen. Her clashes with director George Marshall became so intense that crew members began referring to her as the director behind the director. On the set of Witness for the Prosecution in the late 1950s, Dietrich's insistence on controlling every aspect of her performance led to frequent arguments with Billy Wilder, a director known for his own strong personality. These weren't just the actions of a diva, they were the calculated moves of a woman determined to protect her image in an industry that often sought to diminish women's power. Dietrich's meltdowns were a reflection of her fierce independence and her refusal to compromise, even if it meant alienating those around her. Her behavior on set revealed the immense pressure she felt to maintain her status as a Hollywood icon, even as she defied the conventions of her time. James Cagney. James Cagney was a powerhouse of energy and talent, but his fiery temper often made him a challenging figure to work with. During the filming of Angels with Dirty Face in the late 1930s, Cagney had a notorious argument with director Michael Curtis over the blocking of a scene. The disagreement escalated to the point where Cagney walked off set, leaving the production in disarray. His perfectionism also caused tension with co-stars. On the set of Yankee Doodle Dandy in the early 1940s, Cagney's insistence on rehearsing scenes repeatedly frustrated the cast and crew, who struggled to keep up with his relentless pace. These incidents weren't just about ego, they were the actions of a man deeply committed to his craft and unwilling to settle for anything less than perfection. Cagney's meltdowns were a reflection of his unyielding drive to deliver performances that would stand the test of time. While his behavior often caused chaos on set, it also revealed the immense pressure he placed on himself to maintain his reputation as one of Hollywood's most dynamic stars. Olivia de Havilland. Olivia de Havilland was known for her grace and poise, but her determination to assert herself in a male-dominated industry often led to clashes on set. During the filming of Gone with the Wind in the late 1930s, de Havilland reportedly had a heated argument with director Victor Fleming over his treatment of her co-star Vivien Leigh. De Havilland's refusal to back down earned her a reputation as a strong-willed actress who wasn't afraid to stand up for herself and others. Her most infamous on-set meltdown occurred during the production of The Heiress in the late 1940s, when she clashed with director William Wyler over his relentless demands for multiple takes. De Havilland reportedly broke down in tears after being asked to repeat a scene over 20 times, but she ultimately delivered a performance that earned her an Academy Award. These incidents weren't just about defiance, they were the actions of a woman determined to prove her worth in an industry that often dismissed women's voices. De Havilland's meltdowns were a reflection of her resilience and her refusal to be silenced, even in the face of immense pressure. Joan Fontaine. Joan Fontaine, known for her delicate beauty and refined performances, often found herself at odds with the pressures of Hollywood and her own insecurities. During the filming of Rebecca in the late 1930s, Fontaine's tension with director Alfred Hitchcock reached a breaking point. Hitchcock, known for his psychological manipulation of actors, reportedly played on Fontaine's insecurities to elicit the nervous energy he wanted for her character. Fontaine, already struggling with self-doubt, broke down on set multiple times, leaving the crew scrambling to keep production on schedule. Her rivalry with her sister, Olivia de Havilland, only added to the strain. On the set of Suspicion in the early 1940s, Fontaine's perfectionism led to clashes with co-star Cary Grant, who grew frustrated with her insistence on retakes. These incidents weren't just about artistic differences, they revealed the immense pressure Fontaine felt to prove herself in an industry that often pitted women against one another. Her on-set meltdowns were a reflection of her internal battle to maintain her composure, while navigating the relentless demands of fame and the shadow of her sister's success. Fontaine's struggles behind the scenes were a poignant reminder of the emotional toll of Hollywood's golden age. Barbara Stanwyck. Barbara Stanwyck was a consummate professional, but her fiery temper and unyielding standards occasionally led to explosive moments on set. During the filming of Double Indemnity in the mid-1940s, Stanwyck clashed with director Billy Wilder over his insistence on multiple takes. Known for her efficiency and dislike of wasting time, Stanwyck reportedly stormed off set after being asked to repeat a scene for the 10th time. Her frustration wasn't limited to directors. On the set of Clash by Night in the early 1950s, Stanwyck had a heated argument with co-star Marilyn Monroe, whom she felt was unprepared and unprofessional. These incidents weren't just about ego. They were the actions of a woman who demanded excellence from herself and those around her. Stanwyck's meltdowns were a reflection of her no-nonsense approach to her craft and her refusal to tolerate anything less than perfection. Behind the scenes, her intensity often created tension, but it also cemented her reputation as one of Hollywood's most respected actresses. Stanwyck's on-set clashes were not just moments of drama, they were the byproduct of her relentless drive to succeed in an industry that demanded nothing less. Claudette Colbert. Claudette Colbert, known for her elegance and comedic timing, was a perfectionist whose high standards often led to tension on set. During the filming of It Happened One Night in the early 1930s, Colbert clashed with director Frank Capra over the film's low-budget production and her character's wardrobe. She reportedly refused to film a key scene until her costume was redesigned, causing significant delays. Her frustration with the production reached its peak when she declared the film would be a failure, only to later win an Academy Award for her performance. On the set of Cleopatra in the mid-1930s, Colbert's insistence on being filmed from her preferred angle led to frequent arguments with the cinematographer, who struggled to accommodate her demands. These weren't just the actions of a difficult actress. They were the calculated moves of a woman determined to protect her image in an industry that scrutinized every detail of a star's appearance. Colbert's meltdowns were a reflection of her fierce independence and her refusal to compromise, even if it meant disrupting production. Her behavior on set revealed the immense pressure she felt to maintain her status as one of Hollywood's most glamorous leading ladies. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our newest videos. Thanks for watching.